You're live.
We're live.
So we can see
We're on 7 seconds already. Brilliant.
the hundreds of viewers that are already looking at it.
Good afternoon.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. It's not quite afternoon yet. 10 to 12.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Of course, we can't even pretend it's afternoon now, can we? Because we're live.
No.
Coming to you live from Salisbury. That light coming through is a bit... I suppose it's a little bit eerie. Can you see the spider? See the spider behind me? Still got the Halloween things. This is a cracking pub. It's called the Haunch Of Venison in the middle of Salisbury. And it's a spooky pub. It's a good pub. Look at it. It's going to be one of my favourites. It's got proper fire burning, proper like wood beam root.
We're in a little kind of cubby hole, aren't we?
Yeah.
All the rooms are all... The pub's feels very small, but it's got lots of little hideaway places. It's very cool.
It's an old pub with a lot of history behind it. Here's some of the history. The hand. So
Tell us about the hand.
Well, this is one of the haunted.
I've just arrived. I don't even know.
Of course, I only just got here. I've been doing a little bit of research. This is one of the most haunted pubs in Britain.
In Britain?
I think so. Well, probably in the world. Why not? Let's say the world. Who's going to prove me wrong? And the hand is a big part of it. So there are a number of ghosts that are regularly seen here. Really? One of whom is a man who had his hand chopped off hundreds of years ago. He was staying here, and to pay for his for his lodgings, he was playing whist. And he was so good at playing whist that he won so much money that the locals became suspicious of him.
Right.
They thought he must have been playing tricks.
Okay.
And so they cut off his hand and found some trick. And apparently, years later, when the pub was being refurbished, they found a hand and the cards.
No.
Well preserved.
No way.
Yeah. So apparently this ghost is seen here quite a lot. Not the only ghost that's seen here either. A ghost of some woman who lost her child, sent her child to the pub to buy some bottles of beer. The child never came back. She came searching for it. Apparently this woman's still seen now looking for her child. So it's spooky.
That's
so
horrible.
They keep this hand in the pub.
So no, don't play any horrible practical jokes on me while we're here, because I scare easily, as you know.
So yeah, that's that. And I've got some local beer.
What have you got?
Well, it was GFB. It's called.
GFB.
So I asked the barman what it stood for. He said, God's favourite beer.
Oh?
It's a local Salisbury thing. Apparently that's just what the locals call it. It's actually called Gilbert's First Brew.
Okay.
But because it's so nice, they called it God's favourite beer. I'm going to try it. Nice. The Hopback Brewery.
Oh, it's in a glass.
It doesn't taste that alcoholic, actually.
That's dangerous.
Really, really easy to drink. No, yeah, nice and smooth. Room temperature. Quite hoppy. A little bit of fruit. Talking of fruit, what have you got? You don't know, do you? Because I bought it for you.
No,
it's Simmons.
It looks like Simmons. It's in a Simmons glass.
Mm-hmm.
Hereford cider. Sorry, Simmons, good.
So,
Taste of apples, Geoff.
taste of apples.
I
Happy
tell you
with
what. So, I tell you, on a different cider note, I just come back from a holiday, and I was in Cyprus, and they serve a lot of Somersby.
Yes.
Yeah, Somersby.
Yeah, that's quite big in Portugal.
Yeah, so it's kind of more of a Europe. I think it might even be brewed by Heineken. It's part of that company. But it is the sweetest cider I think I've ever tasted, and it's my favourite cider.
Oh, is it now?
Because it's just like apple ties.
Always has been, or is now.
It is now.
Okay.
It's just the sweetest. It's like even my son at the age of 7 tasted it and liked it. So it's obviously
Dangerous.
Yeah. So he didn't have much of it, but it was good enough, and it was lovely. My favourite cider. I could drink it like water because it's incredibly sweet. So that's not bad actually. It's quite sweet, but it's I don't like dry. I discovered that I don't really like dry cider at all. So it's good.
Maybe your taste will change.
Maybe.
You've changed.
I've just got a very sweet tooth.
So we've chosen this pub deliberately, not just because it was Halloween on Wednesday, and it's still sort of Halloweeny week. People are still trick or treating. But because I was asked a question a while ago, well, not that long ago actually, by Arnold. I think it was,
don't ask me, I don't
Arnold,
know.
yes, Arnold, who was asking me about villains. He wanted to know what we can learn.
Wasn't
from
this
villains.
on the back of last year's Halloween?
Yes, so it's a long, convoluted story, but because this time last year I was speaking in Ireland at a meetup group.
Because it was the Scrum Gathering.
It was the Scrum Gathering,
yeah.
And I was dressed pretty well, actually, if I say so myself, as the Joker. And it's come around. It's been my picture's been coming back to haunt me. And so people ask me about villains and things. So I thought, well, I can't really do that on my own because my film knowledge is.
This is what puzzled me on the way over here. That how's Geoff going to talk about films that he hasn't even seen?
Well, I watched 3 films in the last couple of days. I watched It.
Did you do research?
And I watched Get Out.
Oh, I heard. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's scary.
And
that's a proper Halloween film.
Oh, I watched Sixth Sense again.
Okay.
So I watched 4 films. There was another one. What did I watch yesterday?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yes. Blade Runner, yeah, 2049. So I have watched 4 more films this week than I had probably in a good part of my life. So not necessarily research, just I haven't watched films for a while. Which version of It? The reboot, Robin, the reboot. I haven't watched the original.
Can I make my confession now then?
Come on, then.
So I'm scared of scary films. Don't like them. Don't like films that make me jump. I have watched It, the reboot. I watched the original. Have you seen the original?
No.
The kind of straight to DVD version. It's very good actually. The Tim Curry version is good. But I watched the reboot. But I only watch films like that on mute because the music and the sounds make me jump. And I watched them with subtitles on. So I watched Stephen King's It, the reboot, with the subtitles on, and it was
brackets scream now.
Yes, and it gives you like brackets eerie music or loud bang. So that's fine for me.
So yeah, but I was thinking it doesn't have to be just movies. There's
plenty of villains.
So one thing I watch, for example, is The Walking Dead, which you don't watch.
I've watched some of it.
Okay. And there's a baddie in there called Negan.
You're going to probably spoil it. Massive spoiler alert now, isn't it? A spoiler alert.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not going to give too much of the plot away, but maybe I am. Yeah, okay, so spoiler alert, whatever.
If you don't want to know what happens in The Walking Dead, press mute now.
So there's generally a hero of The Walking Dead. This guy who's been
that's Rick
Grimes.
Yeah,
who's been there for a long time, and at some point in I'll say series 5 or something, I don't know, Negan is a new villain that's introduced. So he runs another community, post-apocalyptic community, but he runs it in a very different way to Rick. So Rick's a little bit more.
I think I have seen this one.
Okay.
I think I know this one.
Libertarian.
Yeah.
Sort of democratic, nice kind of style. And Negan is much more authoritarian, rules with not so much an iron fist, but with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire.
Yes.
And if you step out of line, then you get it. So he's a villain in Rick's eyes. But in his eyes,
a hero, and in the community's eyes, he's a hero, isn't he?
So he rules through fear.
Yes.
But he provides that community with something. Security.
Yes.
Safety. So you do what I say, and I will keep you safe. And in many ways, it works in his community. But in his eyes, that is the only way of survival. So to Negan, he is a hero. And Rick is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because he's coming along and threatening his way of
the status quo.
Yeah. And there is that classic line, isn't it, that every villain is the hero of their own story. So what can we learn from that? Well, first thing we can learn is that to you, the person that you're seeing as an enemy, a threat, is possibly seeing you the same way.
Well, that's true. And if you believe that something is right, this comes back to a little bit what you were talking about in your streamed YouTube thing earlier this week, was that if you believe you're in that place and you're surrounded by people that are telling you that this is the way that things are, then you will believe that that's the way things are.
Yeah.
If you know nothing else, know nothing better, know nothing different, who are you as an agile coach to come in and tell us that we're doing something wrong? Who are you? That type of thing.
Yeah.
You've got no reason to believe that what you've done isn't right.
Yeah. Those two protagonists, Rick and Negan, they tried many different ways of trying to convince the other party that their way of doing it was necessary or the right way.
Yeah.
Neither of them were prepared to give up their ideals, their principles, if you like, and the other person doesn't view the other person's principles as actual principles, but that's another story. Yeah. So who are your favourite movie villains? I asked my kids and they said, but I don't have a favourite movie villains because all villains are baddies and I don't like baddies. But do you have any favourite?
So the one that I thought of in the car on the way here today was Thanos.
Okay, so from the Avengers.
Have you seen that film, Geoff?
Yes.
Right, good. So we can talk about that. So that was an interesting villain. So villain in so much as that Thanos was an enemy of the Avengers. But the interesting way that they cast him in that story was really as the main protagonist of that story. So that in effect, sorry,
so I'm going to check because this line must be annoying people.
The villain was the main protagonist in the story, and in fact, in the spoiler alert, Avengers: Infinity War, Thanos wins.
Yeah.
Thanos he snapped his fingers. I'll do that again for the viewers. And he does. He wins. He gets his wishes. And I know it's a bit of a, we kind of knew there's another story coming, but in that particular, if that's a standalone story in itself, Thanos does win, and there is some method to his madness. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in terms of there is, the world's overpopulated. The world needs to trim itself down, and that's his way of just random saying, half of you are going to get survive, half of you aren't.
Yeah. So he's doing it for what he believes are good reasons.
Is the greater good.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to another film, but I'll
so
go to
do we need a purge?
Well,
what you're saying?
The Purge. The Purge is another film.
I haven't seen that, but it's been on my list.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah.
But the idea of, is that that if the world's overpopulated, it needs to regulate itself.
Any other favourite villains?
Well, I'm a massive fan of comic books. So let's go away from Marvel for a minute, though. The other one I thought of was Voldemort.
Okay. What drives Voldemort?
I think, isn't it kind of...
So I've seen the Harry Potter films.
You're aware of it. I'm reading the books at the moment, actually. I'm enjoying the books, actually, more than the films with my kids. So, Voldemort, what drives Voldemort? Isn't just an unlimited power, isn't it? Is it control?
I think there's an element of jealousy there.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't there?
Over who?
Harry.
Over Harry, and the fact that he doesn't like that Harry defied him, or kind of.
Why did he try and kill Harry in the first place?
I can't remember.
I think it was because he knew there was the prophecy, wasn't there? I think he knew that this person was a threat to him. And I think as the stories went on, he became more of a jealousy thing, and because you could just put him to one side. Anyway, my point behind that was what's driving him is that I think a lot of the villains that I see in films, they're all missing something. I'm not talking about pathological villains here. I'm not in a place to talk about pathology and psychopathy and stuff. But in terms, most of them are missing something. They want something that they don't currently have. So Gollum,
The ring.
he loved that ring, didn't he? And what that ring...
Was he really a villain? He was made out to be a villain.
I think he turned into a villain. Easily manipulated.
But craving something that... craving something that they didn't have.
What was the villain? Was it the ring or was it Sauron?
Sauron, I suppose, isn't it?
But without the ring, Sauron wouldn't have been a villain, maybe.
Well, there's a lot of villains, wasn't there?
Mm.
There was Saruman. I feel like I should do impressions every time.
You did
do
then, I didn't.
Saruman.
But no, I think they're all missing something. And so one of the things that I think drives dysfunctional behaviour, both at a personal level and within an organisation, is when we don't have one or some of our innate needs met.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of models out there, but the one that I often fall back to is human givens.
Okay.
So the human givens model saying that there are a number of innate human needs that we have. And when those needs are met, then we thrive. But if one or more of those needs aren't met, then we don't. And you often see some dysfunctional behaviour as a result, whether that's acting out as a child or trying to exert your autonomy in another area or something. These needs are safety, security, feeling loved, the ability to progress, challenge, things like that. I think a lot of the villains are missing some of that thing.
Well, most villains tend to have a weakness, don't they? I watched the film I watched the other day was Venom. Seen Venom? It's just at the cinema, the Tom Hardy film. And it's again into the Marvel thing, which I like. But again, this in the film, I think it's Riot. Riot's the enemy. I'm going to say Riot. Might be wrong. But they have, and Venom itself has as an alien, has a villain. So that's an interesting one because that's a story done quite badly, if I'm honest. If I'm brutal as a critic, where the initially the villain ends up being a hero.
So the villain is Venom?
Yes.
Okay.
So it starts off very much as the enemy of Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy, who's a journalist.
Okay.
And kind of it's a symbiote, so it kind of takes on.
Isn't that the guy that was Spider-Man's editor?
No, that's someone else. Okay. I can't think. Yeah, Eddie Brock was he's part of the, like I said, part of the same Marvel universe. He's a journalist. Okay. I think he did work at the same newspaper, technically. I've lost my thread.
Yeah, so Venom was a Venom.
So this alien symbiote that's brought to Earth attacks Eddie Brock and becomes his alter ego and kind of drives him to do nasty things, eat people and things like that. But eventually turns out to be good. There's some kind of, but they did it really badly in the film, if you ask me. But all of a sudden, the enemy becomes, I'm actually a bit of a loser on my own planet, so I think I'll stay here and be a good guy, which was done really badly. But that's beside the point. It's that the villains can still go through the same kind of transformation. Yeah, and I can think of a story in BT where some of the worst, the kind of the naysayers, senior managers in BT, that were actively opposing the transformation, went on a kind of road to Damascus conversion and ended up being some of the biggest advocates. Because
what caused that?
I think it was just experience based. Like they had to be involved in a project that did deliver. It went through some kind of almost miracle delivery, whereby people actually applied decent principles and got some. Because sometimes your biggest villains can actually turn out to be your biggest heroes. Yeah. In terms of vocalizing, someone who's really vocalizing how not to do, why something shouldn't work and why it won't work, it could actually turn out to be an incredible positive, and they certainly didn't beat it at the time.
Okay, so now I've just got two thoughts that have flashed into my mind.
Go on.
I don't want to lose either of them, but I don't want to go too fast. So the first one is Darth Vader.
Yes.
Okay, so when you talk about a villain turning good,
yes.
#spoiler alert. There's an example. Now, what's his weakness there? It's ultimately
love for his son.
Love for his son. Yeah, it's family bond.
There's still good in him.
Yeah,
there's still good in him. I feel the good in you.
And so there's the connection. If I'm to try and abstract this, there's connection. There's bonds. There's commonality. There's empathy. There's that, and I think, and the other, which is a very different thing, is, and I'll use two examples here: Mary Poppins and Nanny McPhee. So both of those people, although ultimately were always good, were viewed and perceived as bad to start with.
Yes.
The children did not like those people. They
Is
were.
that true of Mary Poppins
Yeah.
as well? Okay.
I think
It's been a long
maybe I'm
time
not.
since I've seen Mary Poppins, but
To be honest, I'm not a fan of Mary Poppins as a movie, but it's been on my head. I think let's stick with Nanny McPhee.
go
'cause I know
go
that.
with Nan McPhee.
Yeah. So she was not liked by the kids. They thought she was a baddie because of the discipline, rigor, and self-reflection she was
Yes.
inflicting on those kids. They didn't want it.
Yes.
They were quite happy being in charge. But as the movie goes on, she in their eyes turned into a goodie, even though she was a goodie all along.
Mm.
That's a deep one, isn't it?
Mm.
And I know you've been a fan of the phrase that a Scrum Master should be prepared to be unpopular.
Yeah.
Be prepared to be a baddie.
Well, yeah, sometimes you have to be the villain yourself, don't you? But be prepared to put people's noses out of joint for the greater good.
Yeah. So there is a link. I wasn't intending there to be a link, but there is a link between this and my last live stream, where I was basically inviting people to try and. I was about to say try and convince me. I suppose that is ultimately what I was asking people to do. But what was interesting for me was Severus Snape to become but wasn't he a goodie all along, Robin? I see. I still haven't reconciled that in my mind. Was he a goodie all along, playing the role of a baddie to be a goodie? That's really deep. But
Because he was part,
this convincing me thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Most people, since I posted that video, their attempts to convince me have been around rationale, logic,
Okay.
and trying to provide more evidence that I'm wrong. And I don't know what you think, but for me, when trying to convince people's minds, when they've already made an opinion, evidence, argument, logic, rationale rarely wins today.
Mm.
Decisions are made with emotion.
Mm.
Minds are changed in my opinion.
Mm.
And what you're saying there is Darth Vader. He had all the logic in front of him. They tried all the world's going to be a better place and people are happier and blah 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 blah. But it was only when emotion got involved that he changed his mind.
Mm. But there was, so you mentioned before about ruling through fear.
Mm.
There was, it's the quintessential villain, isn't it, in terms of through fear, just in the way his costume, the way he was perceived. That's an interesting thing. Costumes. Go with me on that metaphor for a minute, but just the perception. And there was, I think back to BT. I can think of plenty of villains in BT. I won't name them, but there was people that had an air of fear around them, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Even without mentioning their names. Yeah.
Well, you could just call them Alistair if you wanted to.
Let's not do that. But there was people that just the mere threat of someone being on a conference call with you that had that name would install sometimes action. It would actually, people would turn up if they knew that type of person was out. People would run away if they knew that type of person.
Yeah, they'd make excuses.
But those types of people did make things happen. So there was an area of that the villain being a feared character, but almost an enforcer. So Darth Vader was kind of an enforcer for the Emperor. Really, he was the puppet really for the Emperor. So, and in many organisations that I see, is there will be some kind of threatening personality or
Nigel
troubleshooter.
Rottweilers or something, lap dogs or something, attack dogs. But so I'm going to go back to my human Gibbons thing then, even though Darth Vader arguably wasn't a human at that point, but
he's more machine now than
that's another impression. Was the lackey for the Emperor, and so didn't have that sense of autonomy, wasn't really respected, didn't have a sense of challenge anymore. And because those needs weren't met, found himself questioning what he was doing and why, and was then given a reason. I introduced the term of fake because to my video before, where he was then given an opportunity, an excuse, a reason to get out of that paradigm, which was Luke. And his impending death.
Yes.
He knew there was very little left.
Exactly. So
on his
my time
deathbed.
is limited. Yeah.
Which is an interesting one from a perspective of to question things. So we're quite big fans of powerful hypothetical questions. If you were on your deathbed, would you, what would you do differently? What would your opinion be then? Question: do hierarchy do the same thing? Job titles such as manager could increase the fear. True. Does the team feel empowered enough to question management options? Yeah, I think hierarchy and job titles and organizational structure, but not just the formality, the informality of things as well. The respect. Sometimes I'd be unwilling to question things simply because of who it is, not because of their role, but maybe you. Because I'm scared of Paul.
Many people are.
Yeah, we need to feel safe. There was a tweet, I think Nigel retweeted it, which was so it wasn't Nigel can't get credit for it, but you can get credit for retweeting it. Which we
don't want to give Nigel
something
credit
along
for
the
anything,
lines
really.
of one of the most powerful and sort of uncomfortable feelings
Yeah.
in any leader's life is the moment when you realise you're the villain in somebody else's story. And to some degree, all leaders are, and they have to be prepared to be that because they're going to have to make difficult decisions. They're going to have to move people out of their comfort zone and move an organisation forward. Once you realise that you're in the way, once you realise that people see you as the biggest blocker to progress, that's really quite unsettling.
Yeah, Turkey's voting for Christmas, isn't it? It's if you're a senior manager, and effectively you're voting for empowerment, you're basically voting yourself out of a job.
Well, you're voting yourself out of that job, but not necessarily a job. So I do a lot of stuff with leadership teams at the moment, and effectively talking to them about creating a more resilient organizational culture, one that can withstand shocks. And an organization that is hierarchical and based on command and control isn't very resilient, because once you feel something at the ground level, it has to be escalated, ask for help, decisions, and then comes all the way down again. You can't do that. So to increase your resilience, the teams need to be more self-managing and proactive and understanding of what's going on. And that requires letting go of a certain amount of control, which is what a lot of traditional leaders' roles and responsibilities are built on. So yes, I'm doing myself out of that formal control role, but I'm creating a new role for me, which is how can I help you do that? How can I give you the support to do that? How can I give you the environment that will allow you to do that? How can I develop you? What help do I need to give you? And then thinking about, well, where do we go strategically? As an organisation, can we respond? So it's a really different type of role. The kind of behaviours they're expecting new leaders in this new, more resilient organisation are very different. But it's not out of a role. It's not out of a job.
I'm going to make a leap now. You've got me thinking about other films, other villains. Hannibal Lecter.
So that was actually one of the first villains that came to mind,
right,
for me. And it was probably one of the first scary movies that I ever watched, Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
And it was one of those.
Can you imagine watching that in the cinema? I mean, I wouldn't. That'd be one thing I wouldn't go and see.
Just hold on to the Hannibal Lecter thing for a minute, because what you just said there made me think. So another film I watched in the last week. It's amazing how many films I watched. Was Goosebumps 2.
Not seen that. That's a kids' film.
It's a kids' film. So Cody wanted to watch it, so I took Cody to watch it. And so it's got a doll, like a ventriloquist dummy is the bad thing, which is like Chucky, basically, child's play.
Okay, yeah.
I was amazed that Cody wanted to see it, because Cody is scared of stuff.
More scared than me.
He's a bit of a wuss. But he wanted to see it, and because he wanted to see it, he was determined not to be scared by it. So it was fun.
Yeah.
But it made me think: if he could watch that, could he watch Child's Play?
Okay.
Now, for me, I haven't watched Child's Play since the first time I watched it.
Right.
And it left it was quite a scary film.
That's the one with Chucky, right?
Yeah. At the time.
Yeah.
But would it be scary now? It's like Jaws. Jaws wouldn't be scary now.
No.
Because it's so terrible.
Yeah.
Because of things have moved on. But a classic at its time. So yeah, that was my thought. Would actually Silence of the Lambs, watching it now, would it still be as scary? I don't know. But it was one of those films that I did have to watch again to really understand it better because I was a bit too young when I first saw it. So yeah, Hannibal Lecter. So there's a psychological disturbance there. He is a psychopath.
Yes.
Right. Which we're not qualified to analyse, but there's something that we use from that film, right?
Yeah. So it's the. I was going to go down the whole. So the the link between, in terms of knowing people's weaknesses, in terms of being able to manipulate.
Wasn't where I thought you were going to go.
No, I know. I think I know where you thought I was going to go, but is it 1 in 5? The statistics around 1 in 5 CEOs at organisation level show psychopathic tendencies. So in terms of cognitive empathy, being able to say, I know what your weaknesses are, and I'm going to exploit them to make you do for me what I want you to do. Yeah. So there's that link there. Where I think thought I was going to go was on how to basically problem solving. So basically, how would a psychopath approach the problem that we currently have? So basically, it's easier to sometimes, and it's basically disrupt and destroy the problem, make it worse. How can I make the situation worse? Might actually help us find a way to reverse that, to make that situation better. Yeah. Is that what you thought?
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly where I thought you were going to go. But so let's deal with that first. People often get a mental block. Yeah. Of how do I solve this impediment? How do I help this team? How do I make this change? Whatever. They run out of ideas, and then just thinking about how to make it worse is a lot freer. So it gives a sense of sort of liberty. And even if it's just a case of flipping the way of making it worse to find a way of stopping it getting worse, then at least you're a little bit further forward. So a bit of risk assessment, but often it just frees people up and frees their creative block. But the whole psychopath in the boardroom thing is an interesting one. So we do quite a bit of when we're trying to help Scrum Masters, trying to help them remove impediments, deal with people, deal with situations. And it involves persuading. A Scrum Master doesn't have authority. They don't have the Darth Vader approach. They can't say do this or else. They have to try and influence, persuade, lobby, cajole, that kind of thing. And so we try and give people a number of different ways of doing that, techniques. And we give it with the premise of, to use the movie line, with great power comes great responsibility. All these psychological techniques and awareness of how people think and act and make decisions is potentially powerful knowledge that you could misuse. And we trust Scrum Masters are ethical and not pathological. But that information's there, right? That is how that people have their cognitive biases, they have their blind spots, they have their defaults. That's just fact.
And it's just, even if you need to be able to adjust your style, adjust your approach, adjust the language that you use, to know how someone how you can make a connection with those people in different circumstances. Not label them a villain, but just almost know how they might be thinking about this problem.
So here's a bit of an insight into me.
Go on then.
So for those of you that watch all of my videos, then you're in with a bit of a sneak here. But so the previous video was how to change my mind. So I'd already made my mind up. There are lots of ways that you can potentially change my mind once you made my mind up. But had my friends known me better, and had it not been as fun to just have an argument about it on a drunken weekend, if they'd have really wanted me to get on board with their idea, what they would have done to play to me, my defaults, my drivers, would have been to put this conundrum forward with this is weird, most people don't get this. How can we, and we'll bring another friend into this equation. We'll call him Chris, right?
That's his name.
How can we tease Chris,
right,
with this.
Okay.
So that would have given me an incentive to learn the alternative,
To play both sides of the debate.
to find a way to understand it, so that I can confound Chris.
Yeah.
Right. That would have played to my defaults.
Okay.
That would have got me on board without having to convince me. I'd have convinced myself.
Okay.
Right.
When you had to put both sides of the story across to a third party or a neutral party.
I'd have wanted to look like the clever one.
Okay. So
Chris.
playing to your pandering to your needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have helped, and it potentially still could. Right. If I hadn't gone out online and told the world how stupid I am, then that would have been an option, right? I could have played this to somebody else and said, right, this is your opportunity to look clever at a Christmas party or look clever at the office do or something. But no, everybody knows how stupid I am. I kind of nailed my colours to the mast. But yeah, finding out what drives people can turn someone that looks like a villain into an ally.
Yeah. And not all villains are villains.
No. And I think we've got to be open to that, right? So
actually, you can create monsters. I had another thought of another film then, but it's gone. Don't worry. But
Pennywise, is only powerful if you're scared.
Yes, he plays out your fears.
Yeah, like a Bogart in Harry Potter.
That's correct. Yeah,
look at me talking like I know what I'm talking about as a film critic. So yeah, and often people will put. There's probably a really clever word for this, but they'll characterize somebody as a villain, and they'll take sort of solace in the fact.
And a lot of it's hearsay, isn't it? A lot of it's organisational hearsay. Oh, you don't want to end up on the wrong side of X, because so and so will happen. You know, it'll be the end of you, the end of your career. But you know, at the end of the day, people hopefully are all human. But yeah, so at the end of spoiler alert, at the end of it, they basically defeat Pennywise by just not being afraid of it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's the way they defeat it.
Yeah. Defeated. Might be too strong a word.
Cliffhanger.
And you mentioned something else earlier on as well, which made me think. Yeah, so Thanos, when you said Thanos won. Did he win? And that's the question for me that isn't answered. Because it didn't look like he felt like he'd won.
No,
to me. No. Almost like he'd regretted it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a cliffhanger for another day, maybe. So we haven't got a top 10. I don't know. Would we have a top 10 to your favourite? I do think it's a bit cliche these days, isn't it, to say Heath Ledger's Joker is my favourite. Everyone says that these days.
Yeah,
he was good fun. Hannibal Lecter, I think he's a very clever villain. I like Hannibal Lecter. I had a chat with my daughter about this and said, one of my favourite villains, and I said Gru from
I was thinking about that,
and she said he's not a villain. I said, well, I think he's painted as a villain,
but he goes through that switch
and he changes, isn't he?
The anti-hero.
Yeah. So obviously he's funny. Yeah, I don't know, maybe probably wasn't exactly where. The question was.
I don't know. We've named a few. I don't know if we named the top 10, but Hannibal Lecter would be at the top of mine. And mostly played by British actors.
Well, there's a stereotype. Hollywood see the British accent
as the villainous accent.
Yeah. See, if Nigel was here, he'd probably tell me all sorts of James Bond villains. James Bond villains.
Blofeld.
Dr. Evil. He's one of my favourites.
So that's the film I thought of. We were on holiday, and it was one of those just flicking through TV channels, and what's the latest? No. What's the latest Bond film? Come on. You probably haven't seen it. Anyway, that was on.
Quantum of Solace.
No, the one after that.
Octopus.
No.
Octopus in it.
Yeah, Scepter. That's it. Yeah.
Look at me.
So that's a good example of a similar to
Javier Bardem.
Yeah, but basically, Blofeld firmly believes that he is doing the right thing by basically righting the wrong in the world. The world's lost control. It needs people like me to take back control. It's a similar kind of Thanos situation.
Yeah,
very similar villain story. But of course, ultimately, he loses, or does he?
What does he? But there's the I think, without wishing to get too deep on this one, there's a link to the Cynefin framework.
Okay.
So I think there's a border between the chaos domain and the complex domain.
Yeah.
So in the chaotic domain, things are so chaotic that someone just needs to make a decision. Jamie, we're in Salisbury. We're in a scary pub in the middle of Salisbury. So any decision is better than no decision.
Yes.
And someone needs to just take control and just do something. Whereas in the complex domain, yes, you need a number of parallel experiments with a cross-functional team to emerge the answer. And on that threshold, I think it's difficult for leaders to. It's very easy for leaders to think, okay, it's chaos, therefore I need to
take control.
It's an excuse to take control, rather than let a team take control. Well, you mentioned about Russian villains. It's one of the reasons why we came here. We thought it's got history. Yeah. We haven't gone to Prezzo.
It's topical.
Have a shot of what's it called, Novichok.
Novichok.
Shot of Novichok.
There must be a bar in Salisbury that's played on the whole, created a cocktail based on Novichok. Surely
Molotov.
Yes. Oh. Podcast gets political.
So if this is the last podcast,
cheers. Yeah, sorry I interrupted you then. But,
No, I think that was pretty much it. I think that's another cognitive bias, right? So when you talk about leaders worrying about whether they've lost their role, lost their job, it's very easy to concoct a scenario and convince ourselves that actually what we've been used to doing and where we've added value in the past is still relevant, rather than accepting that actually it's not. It's complex.
Yeah, and that's a huge. Again, villains are usually made out to appear that things are worse than they actually are, and the hero is there to kind of temper that delusion, isn't it? That actually it's not as bad as you might think. We can solve this.
They're the last standard.
Yeah,
the last beacon of hope.
Yeah,
the Scrum Master, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. Or a team of Scrum Masters.
I don't understand it all.
Overthrown. Yeah, it's good.
I enjoyed that. We're at the 42-minute mark, which is kind of our threshold here.
I think people probably get bored by then.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was enjoyable. I love talking about movies.
Yeah,
my favourite subject.
Good one for you. Thanks for joining me. Cheers. Thanks for joining in, all of you. Good chat, and see you soon.
Ta-ra.